I've been friends with David Malachowski for quite a few years now. He's got quite a diverse background, and he's toured with Shania Twain and Savoy Brown. Most recently, I saw him when the production Rent was playing in Calgary. I took my son Jonah. David played great, of course. It was a wonderful experience. We actually did a filmed interview in 2019, and then we connected again via Zoom just around the time Rent went back on the road again.
I was like totally isolated.
Yeah.
And that was kind of strange. You know, because of my touring, I have friends all over the world and everybody was checking in, and that was nice. And, I watched a lot of Netflix. I read a lot of books. And then, as I was saying, I'm inspired by people like Lenny, who is known for practicing all the time. I decided that, I should be practicing. I should be doing that.
I went through this phase as an aspiring guitar player when I went to Berkeley and all that stuff, where you start to dig deeper. Mm-hmm. You have your favorites, and then, well, who did they listen to? And then, and who do they like? And then you find other people, and you find inspiration from that.
People like Lenny inspire me to do that, because that's really what it takes to get to another level.
For Lenny, there's people, probably like Jimi Hendrix comes to mind, where they don't just play the guitar. It becomes part of them. It becomes part of their being.
Lenny was at another highly evolved level where he was trying to come up with something new, breaking a barrier,
Right. Yeah.
I don't, have that lofty goals or abilities. I have my own thing, which I'm good at and happy with, but it's really a different level.
The other day I went and listened to a bunch of things, and there was some classical nylon, there was some acoustic, there was some electric jazzy stuff, there was some of the country stuff with Chet Atkins, and it's all pretty different, but the same.
Yeah.
Because of his touch.
If Lenny would have lived through this, it wouldn't have changed him or his routine, from what I know of it, too much, right?
Right. He would have took that time and devoted it to the guitar.
Right. And it wasn't important to him to, go to restaurants or, right? Yeah. So he would have been fine as long as he had some sort of nourishment and he could practice, you know. Yeah. So I don't think it would have really changed his routine too much.
Lenny was a perfect example of keeping, the focus on being a better musician all the time.
It's great now that we can have candid conversations like I did with David about my dad's struggles with addiction.
That's part of the Lenny legacy that influences me, because I could have easily gone there. And I was there. Mm-hmm. Folks like him, where you see what has happened. Yeah. And the tragedy of that, hopefully there's a lesson there too.
You learn from it, not imitate it.
Right.
Yeah.
People are still doing it.
Really?
Even with all the examples of how it can go bad. Because it never goes good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It can go good for a while, and, there's never any great happy endings to drug and alcohol use. In show business, there's a romance to that.
Yeah.
It's misplaced, obviously, but it's still there.
Yeah.
And that's where it was for all of us.
Yeah.
And there's something about getting older where it starts to I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, doesn't feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. That comes into play as well, and that's why I'm saying it could have happened eventually.
Well, it would have been nice.
I actually, by accident, was a journalist for a Hearst paper. I had sort of a parallel career for Over 20 years.
David also has done some writing over the years. He's quite a gifted writer. And of course, he knows music and arts really well.
I would come home from like 2 months on the road and then I'd have a month off. So I'd just say, send me to a concert, have me do interviews. And it worked out perfect. I could fill in that time. And it was, I would do all sorts of different genres because my career has jumped around different genres. And so it was a fun thing to do.
I was thrilled to learn that he's been working on a book. I really look forward to checking that out.
I actually wrote my book.
Oh, cool.
I have been threatening to do for a long time. Again, I have so many friends that have storied careers, and I'm like, well, I don't want to do my book. And I always tell stories about my friends, and people always say, you should write a book. And I ran into the drummer from Savoy Brown, who I toured with for 5 years. And Kim Simmons, the leader, is sort of an eccentric British rock star guy. Mm-hmm. And he would say and do some pretty crazy things. And so we would quote him all the time. And so the quotes started coming out, and I realized that I had forgotten some of them. So I started jotting them down, and then jotting down the stories. So I basically wouldn't forget them.
Yeah.
And then I got into a thing where I just put all the bands that I was in a row, and then started attaching stories to them. And now I have a book, and it's being shopped by a literary agent.
Great. That's wonderful.
So, it's going to be possibly phase 2, a post-tour of my focus.
So while it's not ideal to hang with your friends this way on a screen, I'm finding that it's still therapeutic and still relieves some of the isolation.
So make sure to get the Lenny shirt here. And
I hope to talk to a bunch of musicians, and I'm hoping to do more of these interviews.
There's technique, and it's beautiful, and he's brilliant on that side of it. But really what a musician's job is to touch somebody, to affect them. And he does it so well. Unlike any other, really.